Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios. So, we're continuing our run of the X-Men. I'm going to cover all of Chris Claremont's run. That includes New Mutants and Uncanny X-Men and Excalibur. And we will have some X Factor sprinkled in. Even the non Chris Claremont, the Louis Simonson run. So X Factor will be included, and all of it will be on a playlist, X-Men playlist that you can check out. I have every issue starting from number 1. So I have so far 1 through 20. I'm using Classic X-Men because there's so much supplemental material. It really makes it the best option to give you the overall picture. Eventually, we will move on just to regular Uncanny X-Men because supplemental materials do eventually stop. So, Classic X-Men is how I discovered all of these adventures. I was about a teenager, so I was about 14. Uh, let's see. Yep, I was about 14 years old. All right. So we get this great cover by Arthur Adams with Sauron. Love this. With he's holding Storm. We see Wolverine. We see all the X-Men dressed, and Banshee dressed like Tarzan here. So cool cover. So this is what the original was. And then again, this is why I love Classic X-Men. So this covers Uncanny X-Men 114. And again, there's new pages that are put in there that just kind of give you a bigger picture. And then there's a backup story. Um, so and it even tells you where this is kind of set up in between. So, all right, and then full page of that cover as Phoenix and Beast are with Professor X because the X-Men, his new X-Men, have died. So you can see here that Professor X is very sad. And I believe this is the first cover that John Byrne did because Dave Cockrum did the other covers. So, all right. And then this is the frontispiece because when you opened up Classic X-Men, you got the cover. And then you had the front section. Then you had the story. Then you had the backup story. Then in the back you had the original cover, so it would say this issue was originally in X-Men this. And then you had a back cover. There were no ads in Classic X-Men. It was beautiful. So it was such a joy to discover X-Men like this. So, and then of course we get Joe Duffy is the writer of the backup. It's the second time that Joe Duffy has written the backup. Most of the time it has been Chris Claremont. Karen Doyer does the supplemental materials while John Byrne does the original. And then John Bolton is the artist on the backup. John Bolton remains doing the backups for a while still. I think for about 10 more issues at least. So, all right. So we kind of pick up where we left off with Beast. Although, well, now he picks up Beast because he ended up lying on top of Phoenix. So Beast, you can see here the snow covered in. In here we get the credits and the title. It is so unfortunate that Chris and John could not make this partnership work. It almost feel like we were cheated out of some magic, but John Byrne, based on interviews and everything, is a little bit hard to work with. It looks like he is kind of best leaving him alone. So, all right. So as Beast is going, he says, "What is this? A light? Stars? No, they're moving. I must be dreaming. No, they're real. They've got to be. It's a helicopter. Hey guys, we're over here." As he leaps. No use. They can't hear me, and no way they're gonna spot a blue-furred beast at night in the middle of a snowstorm. We need some kind of flare. Come on, Gene. Wakey, wakey. Time to make with a telekinetic starburst. Jeannie, I know you're alive, so wake up, Gene. Please, up. Scott, she yells. Scott, and she just does a complete Phoenix. I don't know. She phoenixes out. So, oh boy, Gene, what are you doing? I asked for a starburst, not the 4th of July. So the X-Men are trapped, Beast. They're buried alive in Magneto's complex. We've got to dig them out. And Beast is like, she's as cold as ice, barely breathing. Where did this power come from? Gene, wait. And then hear the helicopters. Sammy, did you see that? See what, boss? Light flash to the port. 10 o'clock low. There it is again, like a giant bird. Commander, look, people. So, don't worry, Scott. I'll save you. I've been through too much to lose the X-Men now. And Beast says, Gene, for the love of heaven, stop. They need me, Hank. I've got to rescue them. Listen to me. The volcano flooded the entire complex with molten lava. The power got you and me out. That's all. There's no way anyone else could have survived. Scott and the X-Men are dead, Gene. They're dead. As the helicopter approaches. And so time passes. And while the U.S. Navy helicopter fights its way home through an Antarctic blizzard elsewhere in a somewhat warmer locale. So all of a sudden you see just boom, 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 and then Colossus's fist. And Cyclops says, "Nice punch, Colossus. Can anyone see anything?" And then Banshee's taking Storm. "Easy, Ododo. Lean on me. We'll be out soon." And she goes, "Oh, Sean, I thought the tunnel would go on forever, that we'd be buried," as the X-Men find their way out. "Comrades, I think we've reached the surface." And they help them out. So they're all treating Storm like a delicate flower. She sort of is because, she's claustrophobic. And Banshee's like, "Scott, if this is Antarctica, I know what you mean, Irish. How come we ain't freezing?" And Cyclops says, "Oh, this is Antarctica. All right, people. A part of it I never thought I'd see again." There, nestled in the Eternity Mountain range of Antarctica, lies a realm out of time, a prehistoric jungle forever hidden from the outside world by a shroud of billowing clouds. Welcome, X-Men, to the Savage Land. I suggest if you have questions on the Savage Land, because even I'm not a huge I know sort of what it is, but I don't know how. Like, for example, Antarctica gets 6 months of darkness because it's in the South Pole. Well, not 6 months of darkness, but you know what I mean. About 3 solid months of darkness, and then partial darkness for about another 3. So, how come nothing else dies? So I'm sure it has to be more than it's just a land hidden. It has to be some kind of like it's in a time loops here. So here we get the supplemental material that we did not originally have. So this is Karen Doyer here. Storm's looking at the sky, being able to be freed, and of course we're gonna get a recap and how they made their way through those tunnels. And so the X-Men eventually hit a dead end, and Cyclops asks Wolverine which way is south by southeast. He goes that way, and so he says, "But there's a big wall," and Cyclops says not for long, and uses his optic blast to remove them. So Storm, in the meantime, is using her powers to try to keep the lava at bay. So she's using like I don't know. She'd have to use like uh, cold. I don't know. Using heat to stop heat. I don't know. So and how much it was to try to stop it. But anyway, eventually they did, and then they take turns. So Banshee, and then you see Wolverine holding his things, and then when Cyclops and Banshee needed a break, then here come Wolverine and Cyclops. I'm sorry, Wolverine and Colossus. So, and then they finally out. So here comes Storm to enjoy the the sky. But of course, in the Savage Land, you don't just fly by yourself. You share the sky here. We see this pterodactyl, and it grabs Banshee, and so um, Wolverine says to Colossus, "Throw him up," and we get a fastball special, and Wolverine hits the Dino, who lets go of Banshee, and then Wolverine just decimates that poor pterodactyl, and so they're gonna go out, and here you can see someone spotted them and says, "By all that's holy, it can't be." So, but it is Cyclops. Even though he's changed his costume, I know that voice anywhere. And if he's here, then perhaps those people with him are the X-Men. So they find Wolverine, and here he is with that poor pterodactyl. Hopefully they'll eat him, because otherwise it's a waste. So, um, and then Cyclops is yelling at Wolverine, saying, "You know what would have happened if you would have missed? Banshee would be dead." And he says, "I did miss Summers. I did good. And if that bothers you," and it reminds me of X-Men #1, when these two again go, "If you would have slipped," and Wolverine's like, "I don't slip, bub." So, all right. And so Banshee is like, "Cyclops, we're tired and hungry and Herb. This is no time to be yelling at the shrimp because you didn't like the way he saved me." Like they call him a shrimp. "If you're hungry, eat that poor pterodactyl." Goodness gracious, I don't like food going to waste. So, Storm and I spotted a village about 20 miles south. Holy cow! How about we pay him a visit? Are they gonna walk 20 miles? Goodness gracious. So, they're mutants that can sense their power from here. Excellent. They're precisely what I need, says this person here. And so, again, another supplemental material here at some base in Antarctica. And the Beast is talking with Captain America, because the Beast was a member of the Avengers during this time. The Beast again had left the Avengers, so this is kind of continuing on that. He says this was kind of a family emergency, and then Cap says, "I understand. I hope everything worked out." And so he goes to check on Jean Grey, who's doing her psychic exercises, um, and she's reading his thoughts, because he's bothered by how powerful she is and how different Marvel Girl just wasn't quite as powerful. But of course, that's the whole thing. She's evolved. Um, anyway, she was trying to find the X-Men, and he says, "Oh, Hank, I looked as hard as I could. Magneto's done something to the Earth's magnetic field to inhibit long-range telepathic projections. I can't mind link with Professor Xavier, but I managed to punch a psi scan through to Magneto's complex. I couldn't find a trace of them." So a week later, Jean Grey ends up going back into the mansion here, and here's Lilandra, and she says, "Jean, it's good that you're home. Charles and I have been waiting ever since you telephoned. He is in his upstairs study." "Thanks, Lilandra." So this is a famous Princess Lilandra. "Hi, I'm Hank McCoy." "I'm pleased to meet you, Hank. Wait a moment. Jean, I'll come with you." "No, let her go alone, okay? The news, it is bad." "Yeah, come on, Princess. Let's go for a walk in the garden." So, off she goes now to go speak of Professor, and she's like, Professor Charles, as she puts her hand in, and he can just tell. Love the screen tones being used by Terry Austin here. So back in the Savage Land here, Chris Claremont loves to put words on a page, and I think it works because it's him. It's just something you don't see very much um, as you read comic books since about the midnight, since the Image time. Nobody did this anymore. Nobody told you what they thought. Everything was. I've been doing some. I love Planetary, and I love the Authority, and in the sense Stormwatch before the Authority, when Warren Ellis was writing most of the things, and it's a little bit different when you read older comic books and then you read new stuff. It's just completely different, particularly how verbose they were here. So Banshee asks Cyclops, "Hey, what's the drill for today?" And he says, "More of the same, rest and relaxation." And then here, guys, you're down here. Enjoy while you can. We'll be pulling out soon. And he's like, "I'll pass the word. It's been a nice vacation, but I'll be glad to get home. The Savage Land is a nice place to visit, but it isn't Sean's cat the idea of paradise." And he's like, "Ororo." And then, of course, she's dressed in local garb. And he says, "Hello, Sean. Chief Tonga's wife gave me these robes. Do you like them?" Um, and so she says, "This place reminds me of my home in Africa. I'd almost forgotten how much I missed it." So they kind of break off, and Storm says that she'll miss this place. Um, or she'll be sad when she leaves. Partly because of its beauty. It holds the spirit and bones of his dearest friend. They think Jean died, I believe. So, but and that's the thing. They think Beast. They think so. They each think the other side is dead, and you think he would. I don't know, but time has passed, so he would be a little bit more. But I guess you can't cry all the time. And then he sees his reflection as he's shaving. He looks like Corsair. Um, and now it hits him that he knows Corsair is his dad. He Oh, look at that. He spoke English with a Nebraska twang. I live in Nebraska. There's no Nebraska twang. So, he's come to the realization that he thinks Corsair is his father, and of course now he gets the memories of his dad and mom. So, um, looks good with a mustache. So, Storm says, "Am I disturbing you?" And he's like, "No, not really. What can I do for you?" "I was concerned and a little lonely in my own way. I cared for Jean as much as you did. I thought you might like someone with whom to share your grief." And he says, "I wish I had some grief to share." And she goes, "I don't understand." And he says, "I don't either. I mourn for Jean. I mourn for Hank, but for Jean, there's nothing there. After that shuttle flight, nothing had changed between us, yet everything had. She wasn't the girl I loved before." And Storm kind of walks away. She says, "Perhaps it was simply that the girl was that she was no longer a girl, as you are no longer a boy. We have all changed, Scott. Hopefully, we have grown as well. If you wanted only to preserve the gene that was like a fly in amber, perhaps what you felt for her wasn't love at all. You go, girl." All right. And so again, we get some more supplemental material, kind of continuing and picking that off here. So all of a sudden it kind of hits Scott here. I'm so glad um, we got these supplemental materials. I suggest, if classic X-Men is not very expensive, and I'm sure I have beat up copies of these issues all the way through the Dark Phoenix saga, and then I quit. The classic X Men. And I they're all beat up, torn to shreds. I have read them and read them and read them. I'm so glad for digital copies of them. So, and in here you can see, why doesn't it hurt? So I really am glad that there's this supplemental material out there. So, of course, Storm is like, I was so harsh, but I could not help myself. Jean loved him more than life itself. And for Scott to be too blind to, or because she feels something. So, she sees these two women kind of fawning over Colossus here. So Colossus asks Wolverine if he'd like to go, and so Wolverine says, "Thanks, but he'll pass. This is his day for sun and solitude and sewing what's left of his outfit." And he says, "Are you sure?" And he says, "I'm sure. Besides, I wouldn't want to crimp your style. You have a good thing, bub. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. My friend, there is anything you would not do?" And he's like, "Nope." But he really feels for Jean. He really thought that the two of them would have a eventually a chance. And he feels just dreadful that she is passed. I like how he carries her thing and then he crumples the. So, all right. And so here's Storm, and she's gonna go for a swim, and you can see someone's behind her. And then she's kind of laying on the side of that river, and someone's approaching her and puts their hand on them and says, "I'm sorry, child. I do not mean to cause you pain, but I need life energy. Only a little." And he goes, "No, such power in her. I never dreamed, smashing to me like a tidal wave. I can't stop it. Dear Lord, preserve me. I'm changing." You can see here. And of course, the cover gave it away. So suddenly a big lightning bolt here. And of course, they all know that it's Storm. So here come the X-Men. And um, Cyclops says, if she let her guard down, she could have been ambushed. And Wolverine's like, "Ambush? How about massacred?" And then he says, "Freeze, all of you. No one make a move except on my mark." And Nightcrawler says, "Cyclops, what is it?" "It is someone who should be dead." "Dead, mutant. I am evil incarnate. I cannot die. Behold, fools, the rebirth of Sauron. And now that I claim the she-mutant's life, so shall I claim yours." Boom. So, next, Visions of Death. Now, if this was just regular X-Men, this would be done. But there is supplemental material going on. So, these are changes that were made. You can see here there was color changes. There were just insignificant changes here, but you can see here just all green versus putting a different shade of green on each, and then the color of her bathing suit. So, all right. So, the backup story is Mother of the Bride. So, we are kind of not really going to cover it very much. So, feel free to check out the Marvel database, but it's sort of like it's very weird. It's very off. It's very different. So she's like marrying this dude here, and then suddenly he turns like into a monstrous zombie, and so does everybody else. And she's like, "No," as all these zombies are going to get her, and um, John Bolton is a great illustrator. I really enjoy him. There's just not too much with him, so Storm kind of gets away and wakes up. It was just a dream, she says, and she wonders how long she's been in there, and goes, "How did I injure my arm?" And so suddenly that door is broken, and it's this weird guy here called Jack. Um, and he's about to kill her, and suddenly everybody's going in. I'm telling you, it's a weird story here, and you can see that the guy that she was about to marry um is in there. So now we're gonna see how she got into this predicament here. So we're gonna um come over here on this side. So Storm is like on a vacation here, and she is gonna meet this lady here who's grieving because her husband died at his job. That's, I believe, that Jack that was in there. It's called 12 Trees Chemical, and that they find it. She find it suspicious. The company um wouldn't even let her see the body. So for some reason, even though Storm isn't a detective, she's gonna go and investigate herself. And so I, I don't know. This is what makes it weird. It's just so weird. And look at there. I think this is the guy. So there's like this thing called YK23, and what it does is it turns people like into these mindless zombies. And so they're gonna try. Um, so this is the husband of that lady. So the guy here is gonna. He's the owner. He's gonna. He wants them to kill Storm before she can expose the truth, and then Storm. You can see here they're. I think he bit her, so they're gonna turn into a zombie. At least that's how the story goes. So you can see kind of little evolution on the art that how clean it looked and how messy. I think even doing 8 pages a month was too much for John Bolton. Um, so now we're caught up. Storm doesn't want to kill everyone, and she just begs, and so she's causing a storm. And eventually, she prays to the goddess to help her. I find these lines just so weird. Just these, like, they don't make sense right there. And so um everyone's hit by lightning, and she thinks that it was the Mother Earth because there's no way she would have killed all these people. So because she has a thing against killing. So anyway, thus ends the story. It's a little weird. So all right, and then this would be the back cover for it. John Bolton always just signed it. He's a this was a little. I mean, he's if you've look at some of the other ones I've done, and the backup tales, you see he's he can draw cartoony, he can draw horror, he can draw romance. So you name it, he can do it. So, Classic X-Men number 20 by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Karen Doyer, Joe Duffy in the backup, and then John Bolton in the backup. So like and subscribe, and I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.